Okay, let's begin. We are on Daf Yud Tet Amud Bet 19b2. Says the Gemara as follows.
No, 28.
20. Oh, it's on the last one. 28.2. Okay, you're on 28.2. Okay, and the last thing we did was this halacha of what's it called of 30 days. Okay, of not 30 days, of even one even one day and 1 minute is already considered enough to be able to then break the shiva. Then the Gemara asked, so we're not going to go into the concept of 7 days. Okay, right at the bottom, 28.2. Yativ Rabbi Chia bar Abba v'Rabbi Ami v'Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha Ikla de Rabbi Yitzchak ben Elazar. Okay, so these two people, Chia bar Abba, Rabbi Ami, and Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha, they're sitting together with Rabbi Yitzchak and Rabbi Eliezer. Nafak milta miminayu. Anyway, as they're talking, something came out from the conversation. Minayin la avelut shiva. Where does the halacha come from that we sit avelut for 7 days? Where does that come from? Tichtiv ve'afachti chagechem le'evel. Machag shiva, af avelut shiva. Hashem says, I'm going to turn your chag, in the destruction of the temple, I'm going to turn the holiday into avelut. How many days is the holiday? 7 days. So if Hashem says, I'm going to turn the holiday into avelut, how long is avelut? Obviously, must be 7 days. Ve'ema atzeret echad yoma, says the Gemara. Obvious, great question. What are you telling me? That a holiday is 7 days, and therefore Shiva is 7 days. There's another holiday. Shavuot is a holiday. How many days is Shavuot? Now, 1 day. So Shavuot atzeret echad yoma. So maybe Chagechem should be teach you that Shiva is only a 1 day item. Says the Gemara. When we compare this to Shavuot, that's going to be used for something else. There's a halacha in Avelut called Shimu'a Rechoka, what means that, let's say a person passes away in Israel. Back now we have a phone, immediately. Back then, till they got the news from Israel, to some guy on the other side, traveled in a boat 3 months later, the guy's telling you the guy died last year. Right? He can tell you that it's already a long time ago. That's called Shimu'a Rechoka. When the news arrives, you hear the news from far. Yeah, exactly. Okay? So, when you have Shimu'a Rechoka, now the person finds out that someone passed away a long time ago, right? The halacha is he sits avelut for 1 day. Now the Shiva is already over. 30 days might even be over. So now, what am I doing? What is this person doing that he heard the news? He keeps 1 day. Because it says, and Hashem says, I'm going to turn your holidays into Evel, into mourning. So Reish Lakish uses the halacha of a chag, of 1 day, to teach you that you sit Shiva for 1 day. Why did we choose one way, one the other way? Excellent. Why don't you flip it? The answer is, because what's more likely and more logical that you should sit 7 days for? For Shimu'ah, for when the person just passed away and the Avelut is stronger, that's obviously the one that carries more. Shimu'ah Rechokar, you found that happened a long time ago. It's already diluted, so I'm going to choose the one for one which is going to be a weaker Avelut. Okay? Excellent. Now the Gemara says.
They didn't pick 3.
Sorry?
They didn't pick 3. It's unusual, like the 3, remember we said the 3 is the heavy morning?
Yeah.
That they picked not.
He didn't pick one.
No, he used the holiday example.
Exactly.
He used the,
So you see that Hashem says, Chagechem Evel, there's 2 types of Chag. 1 7 days, and 1 day. So you know what? Which one is Hashem using? Which one does he mean? Is Avelut 1 day or is it 7 days? Then have an option of 3. Only 1 or 7. So 7 will go for a classic Shiva, and the 1 will go for Shimu'a Rechoka. Gemara brings a brighta. Okay? Tan Rabbanan. Shimu'a Kirova Noeget Shiv'a Ushloshim. The brighta says, you hear Shimu'a Rechoka. Yeah, go ahead.
when does it qualify the 1 day kick in? How long after the death would you say?
Tan Rabbanan. Shimu'a Kirova, a close report Okay? Shiv'a v'shloshim, 7 days and 30 days. Shimua rechoka ena noeget el hayom echad. But when you hear it from far, only 1 day. Ezu hi krova. What's current? What's short? What's close? What's far? Kirova betoch shiloshim yom. When you hear kirova, it's within 30 days. So let's say guy passed away last week. So Shiva is over, and now the guy finds out on day 8. Full Shiva. When is it rechoka? Rechoka la'achar shiloshim. But when you hear it happened 30 days ago already, so you don't get the news until after 30 days, what do? Then they sit 1 day. Divrei Rabbi Akiva. These are the words of Rabbi Akiva.
So 29 days, you do the whole thing.
You do 7 days and 30 days. Yeah. Divrei Rabbi Akiva. These are the words of Rabbi Akiva. Chachamim omrim, achat shmua kirova, achat shmua rechoka, leget shiva v'shloshim. Whether it's close, whether it's far, in other words, whether it's within 30 or whether it's after 30, you always keep 7 and 30 as soon as you find out. That's the Chachamim's opinion. Okay, how do we hold? Amar Rabba Bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabba said, the son of Chana, the grandson, one would imagine, of Chana. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, said the name of Yochanan. Kol makom sh'tav yachid mekil v'rabim machmirim. Every time you find one person who's lenient and the other that's going machmir, the other that's strict, halacha kirabim. We always go with the rabim, with the majority. Chutz mizu, except for this. Sh'af al pi Rabbi Akiva mekil, even though Rabbi Akiva is going lenient, v'chachamim machmirim, halacha kirabbi Akiva. Halacha is like Rabbi Akiva. We already had this idea before. De'amar Shmuel, excellent. Halacha k'di Rabbi Akiva evel. We're not following the laws of Rabbi Akiva mechaverav. We're not following the laws of the many versus the few. We're following the lenient view when it comes to Avelut. And we're learning over here a tremendous chidush. We would even say that when it's not 1v1 machloket, we're even saying that when it's 1v many. Big chidush. Okay? Gemara continues. Rav Chanina atya le'shimua da'avuam bechozai. Rabbi Chanina, he got the report that his father passed away from Bechozai, from that place. The Rabbi Chanina came to Rabbi Chizda. Amar le'shmuel ha'rechoka ena noheget el yom echad. Rabbi Chizda told him, "Oh, it's already after 30 days. You only keep 1 day of Shiva." Rav Natan Barami ata le'shmuel di'imem Bechozai. Rabbi Natan from Barami also heard news of his mother, mi Bechozai, from Bechozai. Ata lekameh, he came in front of the Rava. Amale hari ameru shmuar yom echad bevad. Rava said to him, "You only keep it for 1 day. Why? Because it's after 30." So in each of these cases, we're finding that the Chachamim, the later Chachamim, were ruling halacha lema'aseh like this person. The Gemara is always looking for not just the rabbi said the halacha is like this, the rabbi said halacha is like that. What did they rule in a practical case? Like someone came and he told him, do this. Exactly. Not just theory. Do this. This is the halacha. That's called ma'aseh rav. The action of a great rabbi. So in other words, there's a big machloket about this. The guy says, ma'aseh rav, I was there, Cham Baruch did this. You're saying that he ruled it, and he actually he did the ruling according to what he was sick.
Right before this time period, did they have rules of the days? Did they know that, or they just still sorting this out?
What do you mean?
100 years before this.
Well, let's not go 100 years. Let's not go 50 years. Let's go back to Rabbi Akiva. In the time of Rabbi Akiva, you have the Rabbi Akiva and you have the Chachamim. How do you rule? That then, right then.
So based on
The Chachamim would tell, they would be posek for their people. They would say, go strict. Rabbi Akiva would say, go lenient. At the time, that's what they would say. Now we live after that time.
do what they thought?
Yeah, at that point. Because that's what I hold. Now, in a case where there's a Sanhedrin, we wouldn't allow that.
So now we reconcile.
Because you would reconcile it, exactly. But in a case, someone comes to you Rabbi Akiva in his shul, in his house, he said, "This is what I hold." One day, they go to Chachamim house. What Chachamim say? 7 days. But as the generation moved, so we're sitting afterwards. Now we're looking back. What do we say? We know the rule that we say with Avelut, we go le'akel, we go to be more lenient. The Gemara says, we asked the question, when did we say that's the halacha? B'chamisha mitei mitzvah. In the case of the 5 relatives, right? Who are the chamisha that are met mitzvah? That it's a mitzvah to mourn for them.
Father, mother, brother.
No, everyone but aval al aviv alimo shiva u'shloshim. When did we say shmu'a rechoka? 1 instead of 7 and 30. When did we say that? We said that. What's it called? We said it with the brother, the sister, the son, the daughter, the shiv'ah of the 5 kiruvim, but not of your father and mother. When it comes to father and mother, you have to do 7 and 30. Okay?
But didn't it say his mother when he found out his mother?
Sorry?
Yeah, the example was the mother.
Yeah, the example was that he found out his mother also.
That's exactly the question. The Gemara is asking on Rava and on Rav Chizda, how did you rule this way for the rabbi, Rabbi Chanina, or Rab Natan Barami? The one case was the mother, one case was the father. And on our father and mother, we have a brighter that says, Aval aviv elimo shivat yamim. Amale, Rava said, you're right, you found me a brighter that says that. Aval amale yichidai, velo sevira lan kavate. No, one brighter says that. That opinion is the singular opinion that holds that way. But just like I held like Rabbi Akiva and not like the Chachamim to go lenient, I'm also holding like Rabbi Akiva and not like the rabbi of that Braita to go lenient even on the father and mother. So Rabbi Akiva didn't only say it on brother, sister, mother, child, son, daughter, and whatever, but rather, exactly. Okay. Says the Gemara, the Tanya.
At some point, I don't know, I didn't read, but they're going to deal with the 1 year.
With the?
1 year.
Yeah, we didn't get there.
But it's going to deal with it at some point.
The Tanya, yes. The Tanya, we learned in the Braita, Ma'aseh umet aviv shel Rabbi Tzadok beginzek. Okay? The father of Tzadok passed away very far away. When did the news travel to him? 3 years later. Okay? ובא ושאל את אלישע בן אבויה וזקנים שעמו. He came to ask Rabbi Elisha ben Avuya and the elders that were learning with him. ואמרו, they all said, נהוג 37. Do 7 days and 30 days. So what is that? 3 years. That's Shmu'a Rechoka. And what did they say? 7 and 30. Okay? So who's that going like so far? Rabbi Akiva or Chachamim? Chachamim. The Braita continues, Ukeshemet beno shel Rabbi Achia bagola, when the son of Rabbi Achia passed away and he wasn't in Eretz Israel, and the news came to him, Shmu'a Rechoka, after the 30 days, Yashav alav Shiva u'shloshim. He sat for his son, Shiva u'shloshim. So it turns out that Rabbi Achia Bagola, right, who the news was not for his father, it was for his son. And what did he keep? 7 and 30. So you see that it was that was on not only Avivi Mo, even on the son and the son, daughter, brother, sister, and wife. The Gemara says, turns out, right? Any, right? So it turns out, what do we have over here? That it turns out we have an opinion of Rabbi Achia, and he holds Shmu'a Rechoka like the Chachamim, but not only on father and mother, even on brothers, the other ones. And the Gemara says, Rav Chia v'harav bar achuad Rabbi Achia. Rav was the son of the of his brother of Rabbi Chia. So in other words, Rav is Rabbi Chia's nephew. Dehu bar achte to Rabbi Chia, and also he's also the son of the sister of Rabbi Chia. Moed Kattan. Okay, when he went to that place, he went from Bavel to Eretz Israel. Okay, Amale Rabbi Chia said, Abba Kayam, is your father alive? Who is the father of Rav? We already said, Rabbi Chia's brother. Okay, so it was Rabbi Chia's brother. And what happened? Amale ima kayemet. Rav did not want to say the halakha you're not supposed to bring bad news. He didn't want to bring bad news, so what did he say? Mother's alive.
Indirect.
Yeah? He said, is mother alive? Amale ima kayemet. He said, what's it called? My mother is alive. Yeah?
Right. Obviously, these guys didn't visit their parents too much.
Amale Abba Kayam.
2 years, 3 years, you didn't know.
Then I wouldn't
It's
say
unbelievable. Right? You didn't know it's
So you understand? No, and then also remember there's no method of
They
communication.
didn't even see him. They didn't.
And traveling was dangerous with thieves on the way and etc. etc. They didn't travel like
They
this
lose touch.
generally. Correct. So the Gemara says, he asked him, is your father alive? He says, Ima kayemet. Right? Is my mother alive? Amale Ima kayemet. So your mother's alive? Amale Abba kayam. Is my father alive? Amale lishmaye. He said to his, what's it called? To his gabai, Chalotz li min ali. Take off my shoes. Olech aharei keli lebet hamerchatz, and carry my clothes to go to the bet hamerchatz. Okay. Now, why did he tell his student, his gabai, right when he heard that he was a avel, that he's going to bathe? The answer is because since it was Shimua Rechoka, how much days do you keep? How many days do you keep?
After how long?
Shimua Rechoka, not father, mother,
One day.
1 day, right? Right? According to everybody.
Yeah. These guys not following.
Says Rabbi Chia, once you took off my shoes, I sat Shiva for a minute, half a day, Miksat Hayom Lekulo, Miksat Yom Kikulo is already, I already kept it. So I'm able to go and
Get up.
and do the, I mean, I'm able to go and bathe on that day.
Wow. Not even 1 day.
No, it's 1 day, but Miksat Hayom. So the person needs to sit Shiva for a bit. Okay. Gemara says, Shma min etlat. We learned from this 3 halachot. Shma mina avel asu b'nilat asenda. We learned from this story, right? That had to take off his shoes. You're not allowed to wear nilat asenda. Can't wear shoes on as a mourner, leather shoes. Shma mina, we learned from here. Shimu'ar choka in helget eliyom echad. Do 1 day. Shma mina, third lesson we learned. Miksat hayom kekulo. A part of the day is already considered the whole day. Now, the Gemara says, 1 second. You're telling me now that you have an example of Rabbi Chia himself, who's sitting Shiva for his brother and sister. And how long did he keep? 1 day. And then he relied on Miksat Yom Kikulo, but it's 1 day. Okay. How could you tell me that when, that earlier you told me that when his son passed away, right?
Did he follow?
That he kept 7 and 30. Right? Rabbi Achia, who kept for his son 7 and 30. Gemara says, what do you want from my life? Rabbi Achia did one thing. Rabbi Achia lechud. Rabbi Achia lechud. I think maybe.
Is there a delayed
What was the Gemara's question? You found me one guy who does one thing. Found me somebody who does something else. You're asking me, well, how could it be that Rabbi Achia did this? If Rabbi Achia did this? I think maybe there was a question in the, because their names are Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Achia, there was a confusion. They thought it was the same person. No, they thought it was the same person. On an auditory level. Remember, nothing was written.
Yeah, but it's different actions, different. Each one is doing something different.
Correct. So the Gemara's question was, how could Rabbi Achia? You told me he sat for 7:30 for his son, but when he sat for his brother and sister, we know he sat one day.
It's really the same guy. He really sat one day.
Same guy sat one day, sat 7. Gemara answered, no. One's Rabbi Chia, one's Rabbi Achia.
It's like Papa, Papi.
So I wonder, again, that's my own chidush, because otherwise the question makes no sense. It's like me asking you, how can it be that Rabbi Yehuda did this if Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said that did that? Okay, they're different people, they argue. It's a problem. Right? So, let's continue.
So they got mixed up in the like in this Gemara.
Sorry?
They couldn't really reconcile it, so this
So
had to
it
be a
must-
reason that Chaya and Chaya were the same person, maybe?
No, I'm just saying that maybe the reason why the Gemara asked this question,
Yeah.
is because they thought it was the same guy. Because it sounds exactly the same. And remember, we're seeing the difference because we're reading it. But listen to the sound. Rabbi Chia, Rabbi Achia. Sounds the same. Okay, the Gemara says no, two different people. Now, so what do we have so far? We have an opinion that's keeping 7:30 for this grouping of 5, son, daughter, wife, brother, sister. And we have one that's saying no, only one day. Okay? Gemara says, I'm Rabbi Yossi Barabi. Yossi Barabi says, Shama Shimua Kirova Barega. Let's say a person finds out Shimua Kirova. What's Shimua Kirova? He heard the news of the passing
Inside the thing.
within 30 days. Okay? But when does he get the news? On the holiday. By the end of the holiday, it was day 27. Holiday finishes now. He's outside of the 30 days. So now it's Shimua Rechoka.
Oh, really? The move's over?
No, I'm just saying.
Yeah, the days.
The guy did not sit Shiva because regular you can't sit.
But he found that inside.
Found that inside. By the time he's going to sit Shiva, it's already Rechoka.
Right.
It's already now passed, not the right item. What's the halakha? Olelo ve'en roeg ela yom echad. Says the Gemara, Shimua Kirova, what would you do normally? You would have to wait 7:30, right? Since he found that on the holiday, and now it's ticked over to after, what do we say? The holiday doesn't cancel it, like it pushes it over. But it doesn't push it over to start fresh. Olelo ve'en noeg ela yom echad. It counts, okay? It counts for him, but he only keeps one day. So what does that mean? Since the holiday, okay,
But didn't we say that you
Wait. So the holiday makes it like it's after 30 days, because if you're observing one, that's the same ruling as the after 30 days.
Right.
what do you mean?
It took it to
He
one
found
day.
out on 27, but it was holiday time.
Yeah,
Took him over 32.
So now, he would have sat the full Shiva had it
7:30.
not been a holiday.
correct.
Right, but it pushed it over.
So what does olelo mean? It's deferred. It's deferred here means
One day.
you go to one day. Now, olelo does not mean we count the holiday days for the Shiva. Because remember, we said
We said you could visit condolence.
You could do
some
minor.
stuff.
Exactly.
Like the heavy stuff.
Exactly.
During the holiday.
So olelo means that it counts for the shloshim. So in other words, let's say that we said the guy's going to keep one day of Shiva, but there's going to be 30 days of the minor mourning, right? Like 7 and 30,
Well, that started when
he keeps 1 and 30.
That started
That
the
starts
beginning of
immediately in the holiday.
So he still has.
So let's say he starts day 1 of the. He finds out day 1 of the holiday of 7 days.
Right.
So now, 7 days later, what does he keep? 1 day of Shiva,
Shiva one.
because it's now Shmu'a Rechoka,
Correct.
because it ticked
So
over.
the sitting floor.
So the guiding factor is the 30 days.
But he
because
keeps
it's
going
27 and 30.
So he's now going to keep 23 days.
Had it been day
It
one,
will be the end of 30
But
days.
1 day of Shiva.
1 day of Shiva,
One day.
because it's Shmu'a Rechoka. Now, let's say it was Shmu'a Kirova within 30, but let's say it wasn't day 25. Let's say it was day 10. What does he keep?
the full.
7 and 30.
7:30. Why?
Inside
Because
30, it's Kirova.
even the deferred
It's not-
is still
within
Rechoka.
the-
It's still within
Kirova.
Kirova. Yeah. Okay? Says the Gemara.
And even if it's doing the Chag, he still gets condolences,
Yeah.
and then he starts for 7, and then he does.
And when does he end? And he ends 23 days.
Yeah.
Why? Because it counts
30 starts
for the
right
item.
away.
Now, by the way, how many days count? Depends on what day regularly finds out.
Yeah.
So if he finds out on the last day of the regel, he only saves 1 day from the 30. Okay?
Yeah.
Tani. Rabbi Ada Dimin Kesari, Kamed Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Ada Dimin Kesari from Caesarea, okay? He said, and it came to Rabbi Yochanan. Shama Shmu'a Kirova, and he said to him, listen, I learned this. Shama Shmu'a Kirova b'Shabbat, u'lemotze'eh Shabbat nasit rechoka. What happens if literally Shabbat was
30.
day 30? Okay? So on Shabbat, there's no morning. Saturday night, which it's going to be deferred to, it's already 31. Also, he only keeps 1 day.
Just giving you the Shabbat example, just throwing that in.
Yes.
That's what he's trying to
So it's the same
cover
as,
every situation.
yes, yes, okay? So it's the same as,
Not only a holiday, but also Shabbat.
Also Shabbat.
That's what he's saying.
Rabbi, and in all the cases, the 1 day can be half a day.
correct. Every time you have 1 day, it's half a day. If you have 7 days, the last day is half a
Last day
day.
is half a day.
Yeah, okay. Says the Gemara, Korea o eno Korea. Now he finds out, Shmu'a Rechoka, that this happened 35 days ago, 3 years ago, whatever, however long ago. Korea, does he tear Avelut or no?
1 day?
Does he tear his clothes
Yeah.
for the Avelut or not?
I see.
Whether it's 1 day, right? Because we're all talking about Shmu'a Rechoka.
I say yes, 1 day.
Yeah.
Tear or no tear? Rabbi Mani Omer eno Korea. He does not tear his clothes. Rabbi Chanina Omer Korea. Rabbi Chanina says he does tear. Now the question is why? One would imagine if you have Shiva, who cares if it's 1 day or 7 days? Part of Shiva is cutting. Amalei Rabbi Mani Rabbi Chanina. Rabbi Mani said to Rabbi Chanina, Bishlema lididi damina eno Korea. I hold, according to me, I hold that a person does not rip their clothing. Hainu de lo ika avelut shiva. That makes sense because a person doesn't have 7 days mourning. So therefore, the connection of tearing is only when a person has 7 days
They don't
mourning.
want to waste the clothes for 1 day, they waste it for 7.
The tearing is due to the death, not the time.
That's what he's saying.
You're
That's 1
sitting
day.
Shiva
Yeah.
because someone passed away.
Well, that's what he's saying, the 1 day.
So Rav Mani-
You're only sitting Shiva for 1 day.
Correct. But Rav Mani is saying that where did we find tearing without 7? So according to me, that you don't tear, I can understand 1. But according to you, that you're tearing, how do you have tearing and not have 7? You hold, you have to rip. Is there such a thing as having the tearing of clothing without Shiva? Gemara says,
Why is it connected? That's the
Huh?
question. Why should the tearing be connected to the 7? The tearing should be connected to the Shiva. To
the death.
Right.
So that's what he's saying. Rav Mani is
He's
saying,
connecting it to the 7.
Rav Mani is saying,
Always with the 7.
where else do you find a tearing with no 7? Tearing is part of a 7-day Shiva.
So it's part of the
That's his
whole
question.
thing.
That's his question. Where do you find such a thing?
You don't, unless
You only have one with the other. That's what he's saying. Now, by the way, there are examples where you don't have one with the other. But the Gemara is really basically
So you're saying
going to
if
try and
you-
answer
if
that.
you can't find an example, then they're mutually connected.
That's what Rav Mani is saying. Rav Chanina is saying no. But Rav Mani is saying yes. The Gemara says, Velo, what are you talking about? You always only find tearing with 7? Velo. Ve'atani, Isi Avu ad Rabbi Zera. Isi was the father of Rabbi Zera. Ve'amrilach, what Rabbi Zera? Some people say he was the brother of Rabbi Zera. Kamed Rabbi Zera. He said in front of Rabbi Zera, Mi she'enu chaluk l'kroa. If a person does not have an article of clothing that he's able to tear, v'nizdamed lo betoch shiv'ah, and in the shiv'ah he gets his article of clothing. Okay, what's the halacha? Okay, at that point, right? He tears kriya. Le'achar shiv'ah en ha-korea. But if he gets it after the 7 days, he does not tear kriya. So again, let's give an example. Let's say a guy, he's on vacation, he doesn't have clothes with him, he lost his luggage. If somebody, his friend gave him a shirt to wear. I can't rip your shirt. So I don't have something to tear. Now my suitcase arrives from the airport, day 3 of Shiva, not mine, someone else. Okay? The suitcase arrives. Does he tear kiriyah midway through the Shiva? So Isi said, yes. Let's say the suitcase arrives after the 7th day. It's not like I have a mitzvah, someone has a mitzvah waiting in the wings. Like I owe it to
It's
him.
attached, but it's not different.
Attached to the days.
Yeah. Attached to the sitting Shiva days.
Ani Reb Zera Batre. So Isi said this over in front of Rabbi Zera. Rabbi Zera answered back, when did we say this? By the 5. Not by the other 2. Not by father, mother. By brother, sister, son, daughter, wife. But not by father, mother. But by father and mother, the guy will tear even if he gets the begadim after Shiva. Turns out that if you're tearing clothes after Shiva is over, you have tearing without 7 days. Not only that, by the way, even when you're tearing in middle of Shiva.
But I have another example.
Wait. I just want to get the point across.
Wait, the middle of Shiva.
I want to get the point. So the guy gets the clothing on day 6. Does he tear?
For the brothers and
Mother and father.
For the mother, father.
Mother in the 7 for everybody.
Yeah, everybody.
In the 7,
Yeah, I would say-
day 6 he gets his shirt. You tear it.
You have your shirt.
How many days of Shiva does he have left? One.
So that blows the first.
So what do you see? You could tear with only 1 day of Shiva. What's the answer to that? That's not a good proof. Why? Because you had Shiva. You just tore at the end of it.
Right. The other one.
So you need to find me a case where there's no Shiva and a tearing. Answers the Gemara, right? Where do you have it? When the guy got his clothes after the Shiva is over, for his mother, father,
He did it anyway.
he tears it without Shiva at all. Without even 1 day. Okay?
So he tears it just to tear it and then that's it? And then.
So you see,
What do you do?
sorry?
It's outside the
What do
7
you
day
do? You
window.
tear it, let's say the 9th day. You tear it.
9th day,
And
you
then
tear it with no Shiva.
Okay, and then what do you keep it torn for how long?
You wear it, how long you wear it for. Doesn't matter.
There's no rules.
There's no rules. You're just tearing. So you see that tearing and Shiva they don't have to, they're mutually exclusive.
Yes. To argue the other point.
The Gemara answers, well, let me just finish the answer, we'll come back. No. Kitan yahi l'chvod aviv ve'imo. That ripping is not the ripping of Avelut. That's a ripping in honor of your mother, your father.
Respect.
Like, listen, I didn't tear, I'm not going to tear. Okay? That's it. You can't learn from that the halacha would be that there's a tearing of Shimu'ah Rechoka. Okay? So in other words, what did we say before? If a person has
6 days.
a Shimu'ah Rechoka, he doesn't tear. So what would he hold if the guy is in Shimu'ah Rechoka, gets delayed after Shabbat? What do we say?
1 day.
1 day.
No cutting.
Does he cut or not? Rabbi Mani says no cutting.
Right.
Why? Because you don't have Shiva. Rabbi Chanina says cutting, because you have Shiva. Now we found the bright that it says differently. What did the Gemara answer? That was out of kavod. So over here too, out of kavod.
Not tied to the Sabbath.
No, over here. So why?
Respect.
If Rav Mani's answer is okay, fine. Yeah, but what do you mean?
It's optional.
So, but would you say also? You should say over here also kavod, right? You should say also kavod. The answer is true, but number one, that would not be out of mourning; it would be out of respect. Number one. Number two, it's only for a father, mother, because you don't have to have respect for your son, your sister. Nah, you don't have that halakha of kibud av ha'em for them. Okay, so the Gemara tried to ask a question on Rav Mani. We answered the question back. We said it was for kavod. So the halakha would follow the opinion of Rav Mani, and Rav Mani would agree that if the kirovah on a one day ticked into a rechoka motzei Shabbat, you're right, you'd have 1 day of mourning, and you would cut for a father and mother out of kavod, but not out of mourning, and what's it called? And not for brothers and sisters, of those five or not. What's the question?
So I don't know if it became moot, but I was trying to disprove tearing the clothes not necessarily connected to 7 days. So day 3, someone passes away, you're in mourning, you tear your clothes. After 3 days, it's the holiday. It ends your 7 days.
Right.
Yeah.
You tore your clothes,
Right.
but it's not connected to the 7 days anymore.
So why didn't we bring that as a proof? Remember I said to you, Rabbi Mani said there's no example, but there are examples. The first example you think of is that when Shiva breaks is broken by a holiday.
Therefore,
So
it's
you
not
tear on day 1.
Cut for 1 day.
Day 2 is Shiva is a holiday. It breaks it. So you see that there's tearing with 1
But
day.
he's saying it's
The answer
connected to
is
Shiva.
the answer is no. The answer is there is
That's
Shiva.
not all.
It's a Shiva that got broken,
Yes, it's a Shiva.
but there is a Shiva.
You
See?
mean
real
the 7 days
real-
are still there?
They're still
You're
there.
not observing it
It's
in
in
the
the
way
cutoff
Exactly.
you
period.
should.
It's a real Shiva.
But the regel breaks it. What's the proof? Because we said privately he still does elements of the morning,
Yes.
right? So it breaks the shiva, but the shiva's there. Here we're talking about a scenario where from the beginning we're telling you there's no shiva. There's 1 day. So his question is not when I have a shiva that's interrupted by a regel, do I tear? His question is, do I tear when there's no shiva at all?
Right.
Like this, where from the beginning there's only 1
Year
day.
and a half later, 1 day.
Yeah. Okay?
Let me ask you, isn't there a halakha about, maybe we can get to it, that you can't mourn when you're not supposed to be mourning?
Yeah.
Okay, so doesn't that override the kavod item?
What do you mean?
We said it's an alcohol, 1 day. The guy cuts after the 7 days because he didn't. The rabbi said that. This guy says, the rabbi says, you cut it after. He still cut his clothes after.
Out of
Out of
kavod.
kavod.
Yeah.
But really, that would be against the halakha. Like you're mourning, like you're not mourning. That's supposed to mourn. It's out
What
of
do,
the.
what do
out
you
of the
mean?
mourning
You mean day 2? So in other words, he's on the Sunday.
Yeah.
He's tearing his clothes. Why is he tearing his clothes?
Kavod for his parents.
Kavod for his parents. No, but he's doing it in a day of mourning. It's perfect. He's
you're
literally
saying-
he's
oh,
on
it's
his
the
1 day of
thing.
mourning.
It's the 1 day thing. Oh, you're saying kavod sanctifies that 1 day situation. He gave that the.
Wait. Let's be
I know what you're saying.
let's be clear. Let's be clear.
You're looking
Machloket,
for an example.
Machloket.
Of where on
Right.
1 day. you cut the
Machloket
kavod.
Rav Mani and Rav Chanina.
So just for the kavod, he cuts his
But
clothes.
in the case of Shmu'a Rechoka on Saturday night,
yeah.
that day is a day of mourning.
Yes.
So Rabbi Chanina says
You don't
tear
cut.
from mourning.
And he's saying cut.
He
kavod.
says cut from kavod.
Just kavod. It's enough.
So by the way, you know what I would say?
I got you.
I would say that the laws of the way you cut in mourning would not be applicable when the way you're cutting is for kavod.
Less stringent.
It just wouldn't follow the halachot.
Yeah.
Like as an example, the person is supposed to cut by hand, not with a scissor. Let's say the guy cut by a scissor. Would we tell him he's got to do it again? No, there's no halacha. He's doing it out of kavod. The laws of mourning and cutting the way a mourner cuts. Exactly. So in the case of Rav Mani, you're cutting on a mourning day. but you're cutting out of kavod. In the case that was brought in the Braita, Shiva's over. The guy got his clothes after Shiva. He's not in the mourning period. But it's still out of kavod. Now, what would happen? Good question. Would you be allowed to tear the clothes on Chol HaMoed? No. Because good, you have kavod for your father. Right. So now that mourning. It's not mourning. Answer is not. Cut it later. And also the kavod, it doesn't matter if I do it now or later. Okay? So anything you can do, you don't have to do on the holiday, you won't do on the holiday. Says the Gemara. Okay? Let's do one last piece. And then we'll wrap. Gemara says as follows. Where'd my page turn? Here. Okay. Tanu Rabbanan. Kol ha'omer, kol ha'amur b'parashat kohanim shekohen mitameh lahen. How do we know who a person has an obligation to mourn for? Says the Gemara, Braita, anyone that the Torah listed when we were talking about the Kohen becoming Tameh to, even though Kohen's not allowed to become Tameh, except for to his relatives. Who his relatives? The Pasuk says exactly who's included, right? And anyone that's in that list, the halacha is those are the people a person has to sit shiva for. Okay? Wife, son, daughter, brother, sister, but only a sister that is not married. Okay? That's what it says. Okay, yeah. Okay? Kol amur parashat kohanim shekohen mitameh lahen, avel mitameh lahen. Anyone that's listed in the list of the kohanim is avel sits shiva for them. Ve'eluhen ishto, his wife, aviv v'immo, his father, mother, achiv v'achoto, beno u'bito. Hosifu alav, we added onto this achiv v'achoto habetula me'imo. We, the Chachamim, added onto what the Torah obligated his brother and sister who is not married, me'imo, from his mother. Even though the Kohen would not have an obligation for such a person, okay? Ve'achoto Nisu'ah ben me'aviv ben mimo. And a sister that's married, whether from the father or from the mother. So one more time. When it comes...
Oh, so like a half-sister could be qualified.
Yes.
He's making.
So for a Kohen doesn't count.
No, but for the sitting.
For sitting, what did the Chachamim add? Chachamim added brother and sister who's virgin, who's not married, me'imo, from the mother, and achoto nesu'ah ben me'aviv ben me'imo, and a sister who is married on either side, okay? Because they're only adding one on both, okay? Says the Gemara. וכשם שמתאבל עליהם, כך מתאבל על שניים שלהם. Now, those additions that we just added, yeah? מדאורייתא או מדרבנן? Sorry?
I mean, Drabanan.
Which?
Rabbi's
added.
No, I said Drabanan.
Drabanan.
Because they overrode the Tumat.
So which ones are the biblical ones? The ones that are in the pasuk.
Yeah.
The immediate.
The ones that the Chachamim added, the Rabbanan. Now, if you remember, we had a machloket if the whole of Avelut is Deoraita or Rabbanan, in general. According to the opinion that's Deoraita, those are Deoraita, these are the Rabbanan. According to the opinion that's all Rabbanan anyway. Okay? So, says the Gemara.
But that doesn't really change anything, right?
Sorry?
It doesn't change the rulings. Whether we say it's
Be
Deoraita or Drabanan.
more lenient.
If you say it's Drabanan, the whole thing, this is within Drabanan. If you say it's Deoraita, this is Drabanan.
Correct.
But it doesn't change the way we act. We're going to do the rules according to
Yes, but there would be certain stringencies
more
that we would take on something because it's deoraita than on
so
something
in
because
this
it's
case,
drabanan.
not really more stringent.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what stringencies we would have when it's midoraita. Because here's the problem. Normally, the reason why we pay attention to deoraita drabanan is because deoraita is stricter.
Yes.
Drabanan, we go lenient. But avelut, we always go lenient.
Yes. So an example of a mixed.
So what difference would there be?
So an example of a mixed item would be if you follow the Oraita, Shavuot, here the Rabbanan would be 2 days. The Oraita is 1 day.
Yeah.
So if you follow the second day of the Regel as being 2 days to wait,
Yeah.
you're doing the Rabbanan. If
So
you go to Oraita, you would only have 1 day Shavuot.
So 1 second, hold on. So deoraita is 1 day Shavuot.
Yes.
Second day Shavuot is drabanan.
Drabanan.
Now let's say I have a safek on that drabanan, right, a question.
Yes.
So I'm allowed to go to the more lenient thing on the second day. Okay? Depends on what. Obviously, you can't just do whatever you want. But on a safek, okay, on a question. However, there's an interesting difference that we're going to make over here. On a safek deoraita, we would still go lechumra. The question here is if there's a more lenient opinion, I'm allowed to follow a more lenient opinion.
And if there isn't, we
Oh.
Watch.
Oh,
Let me give you an example.
On the opinion of the Doraita,
I'll give you an
you're gonna
example.
follow the-
Let's say, simple example.
Yeah.
Let's say I don't know if this girl is my sister. Maybe yes, maybe no. I'm not sure if this is my son. Maybe yes, maybe no. Now that sounds like a crazy scenario, but there have been times in history they didn't know. Their wife was killed, Nazis, there's 2 babies there.
A lot of G's, a lot of.
I don't know.
Yeah.
no DNA.
You don't know what's going on.
There'll be a case you don't. So anytime something is deoraita, what do we say? Safek deoraita, lichumra. So the question, we would go lichumra. If there's a psak halacha, 1 day, 7 day, we always go lenient. But that's in a machloket between 2 opinions. We'll choose the more lenient
It's
one.
already in the Drabanan category.
But we wouldn't say, don't do the whole thing because it's the midrabanat, because there's a lenient opinion. On a safek, if it's deoraita, we'll go strict. Now, what if the question of the person is not a safek a
The
deoraita?
high road on the Doraita, and you
What
can
if
go
it's
lenient.
one of these relations
Yes.
that was midrabanan?
Lenient.
Lenient. So you see the
So
difference?
the highest standard for Doraita on a
Sorry?
Doraita Safek, highest standard. Take
Yes.
the high road. Let's be safe.
Yes.
On the Drabanan, we'll go lenient.
Go lenient.
Like
But we can only
opposite-
go
But
lenient if there's a
But you
dispute.
could go lenient on a you could go lenient. Wait, you could go lenient on a deoraita dispute. See, this is the difference I'm making. 1 second. Well, let's review. Whether or not the person is the relation is safek deoraita. So what would we do? Lechumra, we'd say the person's got to sit shiva.
Yeah.
Let's say, okay. Now we have a question: do we do lenient shiva or strict shiva? We always go lenient in questions on shiva. On the question itself of whether there is a shiva, that's deoraita. On how you behave within the shiva, that we say with regards to avelut, we go mekil. No, even forget Rabbanan. We go with the more lenient opinion.
Lenient covers it.
Yeah. So you'll go lenient even on the deoraita, but on the safek, on working out whether something is a question yes or no, you go. So we're gonna have a chumrah on one side, we have a kula on the other side.
So you can take the lenient opinion on the Doraita if it's an opinion on the Doraita.
Yes,
Once it's in the Rabbanan category, we go lenient for different. It's lenient.
correct.
But I got you.
Yes. Okay. So
Got you.
the Gemara says those are some additions that they
These
added
things obviously existed way back. There were more complications because they didn't have any knowledge. It was hard for them. They
in
had to
terms
go
of.
with these- Is it a son, a daughter? They had
No, I just gave you that example.
No, but I mean, it's true.
But you had that. You had scenarios like
A
that.
little weird, things.
It wasn't that it was weird. You just
Look,
had
they
people.
didn't know.
You had people being.
Passed away 3 years
You had
ago.
people being killed all the time. You know, your guy comes to you from. He comes 3
then
years
when he's
later,
also alive,
yeah, he's like, when you left Israel, you couldn't make it back. I'm your son from all those years ago. As far as he knows, you don't know who this guy is. Right? Okay. Says the Gemara, just as a person has an obligation to mourn for his immediate relatives, he is also mitabel al shiniyim shalem, on their secondary relations. So we're going to have to see what this concept is, secondary relations, because this is an idea that we find in many, many places.
So that would be like your grandfather?
The ideas of
Secondary
shinim. This is what we're going to get into Be'ezrat Hashem next time. The concept of a secondary relation. We have it in many places. One of the places we have this idea of shinim, of secondary relatives, is, let's say I come to your wedding and you ask me to be a witness on the ketubah.
You can't be.
And I'm not a first relative, I'm one relation removed. That's called shinim. So we're going to come to shinim,
You
shlishim.
can't have a brother be a.
That's primary.
Right, but I'm saying, so where does the line go? Is what
So,
I'm saying.
so what's a secondary relative? So immediate relative of an immediate relative. So let's say, as an example, it's my brother. But now my brother has a son. He's a secondary relative to
Your
me.
nephew.
Yeah, can't be a witness.
Okay, all right.
An immediate relation.
He's your
So
brother.
my sister's husband can't be an ed. I have nothing to do with him.
His sister's husband can't be there?
No.
Brother-in-law?
Yeah, no.
Well, he's not even blood. no?
Shinim.
But it stops
He's
at
a secondary.
Because he's married to
Secondary.
his sister.
Exactly.
How about
Secondary
third,
relative.
fourth, fifth? Does it
We'll
stop
go.
at
We're going to go into it. Okay. But this is the next step of the Gemara. So the Gemara first said the Chachamim widened the parameters to include a sister married from father or mother, widened the parameters to include a brother, achiv achoto habetula, a brother and a unmarried sister from the mother. Okay, that was, we added midrabanan. Okay, so those things are added midrabanan. Now we're going to come to an opinion that maybe we even added the secondary relatives, and that's what we're going to pick up next week. Be'ezrat Hashem. 20b2.